Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is George Armistead at Life List, a birding podcast. I am here with my co-host, Molly Brown. Today, we are interviewing the one, the only Chris Bell from The Birders Show. Chris, what's happening?
Well, hanging out here in Cali, Colombia for the Colombia Bird Fair. It's nice to be here with you guys in person, not doing this because we've done remote interviews for the show with you before. It's nice to just be hanging out. We've had some good birding today as well.
Yes, we have had some good birding. Quite some adventures around here. And man, some early wake-up calls. Molly and I are still trying to wait. You look like you could just keep going, man. But Molly and I are ready to sleep.
We don't look like we could keep going.
Well, to be fair, you guys you're coming off the back of how many days? I mean, you're coming off the back of 3 tours back to back?
Yeah, actually 3 tours. I did have a little gap in the middle, but yeah, it's been on the road for a while now. Definitely happy about it, but I'm looking also forward to getting home soon and having a little R&R for sure. Yeah. But, I don't know, Molly, you've been on the road and you got some more stuff coming up, too.
Yeah, a little bit longer before I get back for R&R. And you don't have much. You're heading back on the road before too long, so it's a short gap. But
couple weeks, yeah.
I think one day of rest and I'll be caught up and back at it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of cheating as well because I'm just main learning coffee.
You have been all day. All day. Like 3 hours ago, someone said, boy, you do drink a lot of coffee, and you've had a couple cups since then, I think.
Yeah. It's funny because people say you drink a lot of coffee, and at home I'm not too bad. I have one in the morning, maybe one after lunch, but in the field, I will polish off double figures.
Yeah.
Small cups and, weak coffee.
Right,
but still,
tintos.
Tintos, but I'll put a lot away.
Yeah.
But 3:45. We were talking about this earlier, right? Anytime your alarm starts with the number 3,
that's a bad scene.
Yeah.
Especially when it's 3 days back to back.
Yeah.
Right? Oof.
Yeah.
But Molly and I are going to Sonso Lagoon tomorrow. There's one more of those, right?
Yeah, it's going to be quite a change of pace for me and the birding I've done so far. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I guess have you ever birded Cauca Valley?
Nope.
Dry forest? Right?
I have not. Nope. Entirely new. It's going to add a lot of country birds for me. And some lifers, too.
Nice.
Yeah, good spot for potus. You guys are probably going to bump into some potus, so that'll be nice.
Yeah.
Strange ranger, those potus. Yeah.
Super weird. Diego always tells me, my co-host on the show, about the eyelid thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The potus, that's such a trip, knowing that they're watching you even when their eyes are closed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were able to see that a little bit on our trip there. What day? Yesterday. Seems ages ago.
A lot's happened since then.
Yeah. Well, Chris, how about maybe tell folks a little bit about what we did today and what was the highlight for you today of our trip, and maybe tell folks where we went.
Yeah. Okay. So today we went to the field trip called Alto Anchicaya. Anchicaya is the valley that goes down, the river valley that goes down from the kind of foothill forest, western Andean slope all the way down to the Pacific coast, the old road from Cali to Buenaventura on the Pacific coast. We went specifically to a place that's known as Doña Dora. Doña Dora is the owner of this little roadside, used to just sell sort of empanadas and tinto to passing truck drivers on the way down to the coast. And she's got these amazing ficus trees in her backyard that when they're in fruit pull in all these incredible choco endemic birds. And it's become kind of the place for a lot of these species in Colombia and one of the most kind of popular birding spots. I think it's one of the places that people have the fondest memories of when they come birding in Colombia is Doña Dora's place, just because the family are lovely as well. The birding is incredible. I would say my highlight today was her cheese empanadas.
Yes, pretty darn good. We failed. We were supposed to bring some back for Molly as well, but they ran out.
Live tasting. Oh, really? They ran out?
Yeah, they ran out, yeah. But
they weren't prepared for bird fair?
Well, no, they were, but they ran out because we ate about 6.
That's true. Yeah.
They were enough, but we ate them. The birding highlight was probably... That's tough because I've been fortunate. I've been to Doña Dora a lot, so there's nothing that I haven't seen a bunch. But I really like going there with people who've never been there, including the Colombians on our group. You're some of your guys from the Hillstar tour. Seeing people see toucan barbet that close for the first time and really just being mind blown by it is really fun. And even you, that was your must have been your best view ever of that.
Absolutely, it was. And we had 3 of them up in the crown of this tree. They were all sounding off together, doing the French ambulance call. It was that was pretty special. But I got to admit, having seen those before, it was definitely the clear highlight. But I think a very close second was my first indigo flower piercer. That was that was pretty hot as well. Yeah.
Yeah, good bird. Oh, and actually, I forgot to say as well, because I had the scope and I'm a lazy digiscoper. We've talked about this before. I always have the scope and I'm watching birds, and then I realised, I should probably film this. But there was a tricoloured or choco brushfinch that perched out singing for a ridiculous amount of time for a brushfinch. Like brushfinches don't, from my experience anyway, tend to sit up for 10 minutes perched, and so I managed to get a really nice digiscope video of this tricoloured brushfinch, which that was cool.
Yeah, that thing sat there forever. And Molly, I want to hear about your highlights as well, but I think one thing that both Chris, you and Duke, who was with us today, mentioned about Doñadoras is like, and it was funny because I think Duke said it to me right after you'd said it to me, independent of one another. You said, yeah, it's funny, sometimes people, they come here to Doñadoras and you watch them get out of the van and they think, is this like a rest stop or something?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Like, there's a beautiful toucan barbet, mural, but like, what else are we doing here? And I
saw the look on his face. Like not sort of aghast, but a little bit like,
okay. What are we doing here? Yeah, what is this?
Yeah.
And then you go around back, and there's just like silver-throated tanagers and red-headed barbets and white-lined tanagers and green thorntails going crazy, and
a little hummingbird kind of enclave down the side where you a little hummingbird cave.
That's unbelievable. Uniformed tree hunter coming out of nowhere today.
Wow.
Yeah, it was nice. And so it was funny. Like right after you said that, like you liked seeing people, arrive at Doñadoras and kind of be like, what are we doing here? And then like a little while after that, Duke's like, you could get here and be a little underwhelmed at first, And it was exactly the same thing. And then he was like, this place, he was basically saying this place is amazing. One of the highlights of his trip so far. So
I'm glad to hear that as well, because, these bird fair outings, it's an amazing event, but, it's early mornings, very long days. I can understand how people, could be a little bit, underwhelm's the wrong word, but a little bit tired, even by day two, but maybe not be able to appreciate it quite as much just from the tiredness. But so it's nice to hear that that's like a trip highlight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Molly, how about you? Did you have a highlight from today? I know you had a good field trip as well.
Yeah, so our group's been splitting up each day, and so sometimes we're together and sometimes we're not. So today I did the very well-known kilometer 18 area and made a couple stops there. So it was really fantastic birding, and exactly what you were just saying, how I was really dragging when I woke up and I passed out as soon as I got on the bus, and we had like a 40-minute drive. But as soon as you get there and it starts to get daylight, then I'm just totally energized and just ready to go. And birds started quite early, and I mean we had a really nice showing just as we were eating breakfast, and it continued. We had just really good activity levels all day as we were working our way down a little bit through a couple sites there. Multicolored tanager, easy highlight.
Tough to beat that.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of tanagers on this trip, and I was not that I was not looking forward to that bird, but like it just hits you. I was super impressed. It vastly exceeded my expectations.
Well named as well. Like
yeah,
they don't always hit them quite right, but multicolored tanager, pretty good name on that one.
Yeah, we had a female come in to a feeder, and then about 5 seconds later, a male dropped, and it was just bam. And that was followed quite quickly by watching a chestnut wood quail come in to a really nice station. The same thing that we've talked about with like the ant pittas and different, feeder setups around here, where it sounds like that area's got a couple sites where chestnut wood quail are fairly reliable.
At least 3, I think.
You guys are just rubbing it in now, aren't you? I see what you're doing there. Yeah. Yeah, I still need that one. Yeah, it's like I feel like I've heard them a million times, but
it's really cool. We had 4 come in. They have a really nice setup at La Florida as well, and they've got it sort of dug out and a blind, and it's quite long. There were a lot of us watching, but you're kind of standing at eye level with them, and they've got a little pond behind too.
Oh my gosh.
So it was phenomenal viewing. Really, really cool to watch them. That was great.
My first ever, sorry to interrupt, my first ever chestnut wood quail was, believe it or not, dead in the mouth of a crab-eating fox at Otun Kimbaya. I went out for a walk at dusk at about 6 p.m. It was getting dark in the forest. Have you been to Otun?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's it's very dark in that kind of tunnel on the main road. Even the trees and the bamboo and everything grows up really high over, so it's really dark. So even at 5:36, it feels like night. And I was walking along, and these two foxes were coming towards me down the road, and I sort of just stood quietly on the edge of the road. And as one got closer, I realised it had some big, something in its mouth, and as it walked right past me, it sort of stopped, looked at me, and I could see clearly that this was a chestnut wood quail. And he just carried on walking. I was like, I don't think I can e-bird that. I don't think I can tick that.
You can eye at
Definitely
it.
did.
You could eye at it, but I think
exactly
e-bird.
right.
No, I didn't e-bird it. My conscience got the better of me, but yeah.
Wow.
Oh, it's great. It was a great day. Also, what might be my favorite hummingbird, booted rackettail, were around, and they were wonderful. Female and male too. I mean, the rackettail's awesome, but you just see the boots from far
I was going to say
away.
the boots are as good as anything.
That's what I said today. You come for the rackettail and stay for the boots.
And the female has that kind of nice little kind of cocked up tail with the white tips when it flies as well. It's kind of got a nice little buoyant flight style. It's a nice bird.
Like not quite a wood star flight pattern, but it's getting there. It's
we have two now in Colombia as well, because that's been recently
I saw that.
split it. So we've got Peruvian booted right down in the south in Putumayo in the foothills. Very few records, but the boots are like
they're rusty,
kind of buffy,
Really?
buffy colour. They look amazing. Yeah, this is white booted racquet tail now, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, great day.
Wow. And Molly, did you say that you also had a Tyra today?
We had a Tyra coming to the feeder setup.
It's not fair. Yeah.
No, it's crazy. I don't know if we've talked about our experience.
No, we never did, actually.
Yeah, well, we'll see when this comes out. We can talk at one point about our other Tyra experience that was a very chance encounter that we felt very lucky about on the trip. And then here a few days later, we're sitting at these feeders 10 minutes in, and someone says that a Tyra just took a banana. And I really thought they meant a different mammal. Like, I thought I heard them wrong. Nope, there was a Tyra that just kept coming regularly, and it was, 10 feet from us. It would shimmy up and take...
feeders at La Florida are no distance away.
I could not get photos. It was too close.
I was going to say, that sounds a little intimidating almost. Like,
oh, it was nuts. I have one photo with just its claws kind of holding on to the pole, and they raised the bananas up to the very top, so they were like 8 feet up or so. So it would get to the bottom, it would look up, it would think about it, and go up, grab one banana, and go back down, and be back 5 minutes later. Wow. Crazy.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if folks don't know, we're talking about Tyra. It's a weasel. It's like a big weasel in the mustelid family. And did this one have sort of one of those blonde collars?
Yeah, it was very obvious. Big. I would call it white.
Yeah.
I guess a little buffy. But
yeah.
very
some of them
obvious.
are white. Some of them are kind of buffy. Some of them it seems like it's a variable mark in that animal from what I can gather. But they have like kind of a very Wolverine kind of.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's
crazy to be that close. To
and the first one I ever saw was in Costa Rica. I've only seen 3. The third was and best was the one we had on this trip earlier, and we can talk about that another time. But the first one I ever saw, I was by myself on a trail in Costa Rica, and this thing came shooting down a tree like 15 feet from me, and then just froze and looked at me. And honestly, I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. They're not even that big, but they was just so fierce.
No, but they look fierce, and they look smart, and they're very aware,
and they're fast.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's such an exciting mammal. That's awesome.
Oh, it was really, really cool.
I've only ever glimpsed that. I've seen, no, that's unfair, but I've never seen them like that. I've seen Doña Dora. There used to be one that would come occasionally to the feeders there and just nab a banana and lie. I've seen that one, and then just a few dashing around, but never like that. I mean, it makes you want to kind of go up to La Florida quickly, tomorrow afternoon and see
how much daylight we got here.
Yeah. Let's go. Should we just record while walking?
Nice. Well, we've been wanting to get you on here for a while, Chris, and it's been a real honor and a privilege to be able to record, 3 different episodes here while we've been here at the Columbia Bird Fair, which has just been such a great time. But yeah, we wanted to kind of get to know you a little bit better. Everyone's familiar with you from the Birder Show, but maybe don't know as much about your background. And we thought it'd be a little interesting to... I know you haven't been a birder forever because you've told me about the times you wish you could go back and bird these places that you had gone to and really, dig in hard. How did you come to birding?
Well, it's kind of a weird story because I was a lapsed birder in those periods that I told you about. So I've loved birds and birding in a sense since I was really small, since I was 5 or 6. My granddad was the kind of, post Second World War, like, egg collecting and everything was fine in England, and that's how young people, interact with nature. They'd go out and, find birds' eggs and collect them and stuff. He loved birds. My dad picked that up from him. I ran with it a lot more than either of them did. I mean, like doing a YouTube series about birding and stuff is a lot more than any of them would ever have thought about doing. But I was kind of obsessed with birds when I was 7 or 8 years old. I mean, my dad tells stories about the first time we ever went to, it was California, I think, on a kind of classic family, Disneyland style holiday. I was maybe 8, 9 years old. And he tells a story about him the first time trying to drive on that. LA highways are insane, right? Like, he was trying to drive a rental car on those LA highways. And one of the only times I've ever heard him lose his temper a bit was I was sitting in the back seat, trying to identify passing birds while we went down the highway and bugging him about it. Like, do you think that was a tree swallow or whatever it was? And I think it's one of the only times I've ever said, look, will you please be quiet? So I've loved birds and kind of been obsessed with them since I was small. But then...
And what part of England were you from?
Shropshire, on the Welsh border. Same town as where Charles Darwin was born, Shrewsbury.
Oh, right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good fact.
And but yeah, no, I kind of fell out of it a little bit in my. Yeah, I think a lot of times if you're a teenager, and I didn't really grow up around my dad, but I didn't grow up around a birding community of my peers. It's one of the things that's great about the bird fair here. I love seeing all these young kids come to the bird fair surrounded by their peers from different parts of the country who love birds, and they have this way of connecting through social media and stuff. I think that kind of thing would have probably kept me birding more in my teen years if I'd had that kind of access to peers who were also birders. But I always watched birds, but a lot more passively in that period. So when I backpacked around South America, and I lived in Venezuela for a year when I was 20, 21. And I always had an old pair of binoculars. And if I went to, say, the Amazon rainforest and I saw a toucan, I'd look at the toucan and be amazed and I'd see things. But the idea of actively birding, going out looking for, I don't know, whatever, ant birds, puff birds, or, the regret I was telling you about today was having trekked up to Roraima in Venezuela in the Grand Sabana. And it's incredible. I don't regret the trip. It was an unbelievable trip. But I look back now and I'm like, I had no idea there were, a dozen plus Tepui endemics more that I could have looked for and seen there. I kind of,
I have to say,
I could go back and do that.
Yeah, I have to say, I just envy you even going to that region at all. But like, if people can picture it, it's basically a sort of flat, country that goes on forever with these like flat mountains that kind of rise out of this flat, forested landscape. It's just like
it's Up.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's the reference.
If you ever see the movie Up, that's like it's got Victoria Falls in there, or not Victoria Falls, Angel Falls, and like the whole thing, and it just is like a magical area that I thought I was going to get to go to, and that just obviously has not happened. But
one day, I mean, I know that tourism is happening again, at least in that area now in Venezuela. I've seen a few companies advertising trips there and stuff like that. So I'm keen now that I'm one country over again.
You're going to go back and get the Tepui Tinamu and
that fruit eater, the scarlet banded fruit eater. I really would love to see that bird. But and then I moved to Colombia when I was 23, and during that time I rediscovered birding because I was working a job at that point in Bogota that I wasn't especially fond of, and I was feeling a little bit down because I moved back to Colombia after I graduated with the intention of, making a go of it and staying in Colombia. I love the country. And I'd had a job that I wasn't really working out and I was a little bit down. And I remember actually having a kind of eureka light bulb moment thinking, well, looking at birds always used to make me super happy when I was a kid. And I've read somewhere that Colombia's got I knew it had a lot of birds, but the, number one in bird species. So I thought, all right, maybe that will help me feel a little bit more, enthusiastic and, keen about being it. And I took I had 12 by 42 binoculars, not even out of choice. I think they were just second-hand ones or something like that. And I went to the botanical gardens in Bogota because it was the only place I could think of where I was like, well, there'll probably be birds there. And I spent 3 or 4 hours failing miserably to identify, black glossy flower piercers, sparkling violeted, trying to figure out I had the original Hilty, the 88, maybe 1988 Steve Hilty Guide to Birds of Colombia. And I barely identified anything, but I remember coming back and feeling as light and relaxed and calm as I'd felt in 12 months. And I remember thinking, okay, there's something to this, going back into this, and not look back really soon.
Wow. You totally subscribe to Holly Merker's mindful birding right there. It's like, it's exactly, well, that's cool. And now you've been here 10 years, is that right?
Yes, 10 years. Yeah. 10 years. First came in 2011 for about just over 12 months. I left for a little bit and then came back in, I guess, late 13, something like that. So early 14 years. It actually might be more than 10 years. I lost count.
Now, at what point did you become acutely obsessed with your Columbia list?
Yeah, I think it's a symptom. It's a two-way thing, because when I first came back, I was working in travel blogging, travel writing and stuff, and I actually first became obsessed with exploring every region of Colombia. That was the first obsession, and birding, actually, I would say birding kind of facilitated that travel rather than the other way. Like it was sort of give me an excuse to go to places where people weren't really going, because there's always interesting birds to be found. Often even more interesting birds to be found right in the places where there aren't many tourists. There isn't much, tourist infrastructure, and so the kind of two went hand in hand. It was like, right, where can I explore new parts of Colombia I've never been and also see cool birds? And the two kind of became interwoven. And then it got to a point where I was sort of, I just marked stuff in my book at first. I got into eBird relatively late compared to, other birders I know in Colombia. And I sat down, I had, a few weeks where I didn't have a lot on, and I was living in a little house outside Manizales in the coffee region, the countryside, and I just did my eBird historical records for Colombia. And I did them all night. I sort of was, I don't know what number it would have been at that point, but probably well over 1,000 at that point. And I remember thinking, I'm not sure there are many countries in the world where you can even see over 1,000 species. Relatively speaking, there's not that many countries where you can even see over 1,000. I remember thinking, wow, wouldn't it be a trip to get, 1,500 species? How many countries in the world have 1,500 birds? Half a dozen, maybe?
Yeah, tops, I would think.
Yeah, and I just remember thinking, wow, okay. And I also remember just thinking, well, in the pursuit of those extra, 400 or 500 birds, I bet I could go to some really cool places in Colombia. And yeah, that's kind of happened.
That's the way it evolved. Man, what a journey it's been. One of the things I thought was really interesting that you guys had done recently, you and some friends, mutual friends, was head off the Pacific coast there and endeavor a pelagic trip. Now, do you know how many pelagic trips have even been done out of Colombia? Is there a fair number, or was this number 3 or something? Or
I wouldn't like to put an exact number, but very few. And I mean, I suppose if you're calling it like an official pelagic trip in the sense that organised for birders, with the chum and stuff like that, the fish oil to put down for the petrels. I'd probably say fewer than half a dozen. And then there's other people who've gone out maybe on small boats with fishermen and tried to, see stuff around the catch and stuff like that. But there are very few lists. I mean, pelagic lists and reports of those birds and photos and things like that are very few. Because, I mean, I think eventually it will become more popular in Colombia. But I think we're still at the point where the Colombian birding culture and scene, as rather than biology and science, the active, birding as a hobby is quite young. Right, really. In the last 10 years, I've seen it go from not that many, but you wouldn't meet that many birders out in the field, even in these places like the 18 and Doña Dora. Now, there's groups every week. So I don't think people have reached that point where they feel the need to put themselves through 24 hours on a boat in the open ocean to add 10 species to the list, because they've still
it's not for everybody, I guess. Is it?
So they still have 500, 600, 700, 800 gettable birds on land.
Yeah.
A lot of countries, I can understand why maybe in the UK people get keen on getting out to see seabirds, because once you've birded for a few years, you've got most of the resident birds, right? You're waiting for vagrants, accidentals, and seabirds and stuff like that. But no, it was a great trip. Apart from the boat breaking down 40 some miles from shore,
40 miles from shore,
something like that. It was a long way.
Too far to swim, I guess.
You couldn't see land. Let's put it that way. You certainly couldn't see land, not even the sliver of land. It was a bit hair raising at that point.
Wow.
And also, with pelagic birding, I think in Colombia, I often tease Colombian birder friends of mine just saying, you guys are spoiled and you don't realize it, because you go to a pelagic and, you really realize there's never a point in a Colombian forest where even when it's quiet, you're still surrounded by plants, orchids, incredible wildlife, moths, bugs. And there's so much stuff to see. Pelagic birding, I remember just saying, there's 3 hours you don't see anything.
Yeah.
No life.
Yeah, real doldrums at times out there.
Can't even see land, There's nothing to look at really apart from just rocking waves. But it was a fun trip. I think we got about at least a dozen really, really interesting species for Colombia, like, tropic bird and red-billed tropic bird, redneck phalarope, a bunch of shearwaters, storm petrels.
Any mammals?
Yeah, I'm bad with mammal names. A dolphin species, Pacific.
White-sided?
No,
Yeah.
I'm sure the name
Or
was something
spinners, maybe
Pacific in
spinners.
it. It said something Pacific dolphin. I'm sure. I did look it up. And humpback whales, lots of humpback whales. It was that time of year, so we did see a lot of whales, which was really nice. And at one point,
white-sided down there, I guess.
turtle, I think, at one point, if I remember correctly, would have been I'm not sure. Again, I'm bad with turtle names. Not a mammal, obviously, but a head popped up briefly.
You do better if they have feathers. It sounds like.
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, I love seeing the mammals, but I'm pretty bad with all the names. But the birding was awesome, and it's just an adventure. That's the kind of thing that I think attracts me to. It's like you said, the big listing thing in Colombia. For me, it's less about the list; it's more about the adventure that the list means. Because I know at this point that if I go to look for these kind of birds, it's going to be an adventure. I'm going to see a part of the country that a lot of people haven't been able to go to. That's new for me, and like trips to see Perihar, painted parakeet up there and stuff. Those are in places where very few people have been birding or even traveling if they don't live there.
Yeah,
and that's fun.
Man. Yeah, well, you've certainly got as good a patch to explore as exists. If Colombia's your patch, man, that's pretty tough to beat. Yeah.
Unfortunately, my patch is mostly my downtown Bogota window. So that's one of the reasons I travel so much as well, because my birding is kind of limited. I do feel bad, but it's kind of limited to great thrushes and rufous collared sparrows, which both nice birds. But
wasn't there a white-crowned sparrow vagrant a couple years ago or something?
There was in the National University campus, which is about 10 minutes from my house, and I did twitch that bird. It was there for maybe a week, I think.
I can't imagine that,
Wow.
showing up at college campus and just seeing Bogota and seeing a white-crowned sparrow.
It knew what it was doing because it turned up in the patch of trees right in front of the ornithology building. So it was identified instantly by the army of ornithologists who came out and spotted this bird. So it really knew what it was doing. Because, that's the first record for South America, I think. But I always think if that bird had pitched up in almost anywhere else in Bogota, apart from a couple of little parks, it would have just, they would have never known about it.
They probably would have thought it was a copeton, right?
Yeah,
they were just a weird copeton, rufous collared sparrow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a wild one, man.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I asked you before where your next patch was that you wanted to hit, and I think you'd mentioned there was helmeted curassow on the horizon. But is there another patch that you haven't been to yet that's coming up?
Yeah, the big one for me is in June. I'm going with some friends for just over a week to Leticia on the Amazon River. So Colombia, for anyone who's seen a map of Colombia or hasn't, Colombia's a weird shaped country. There's this little tail at the bottom. They call it the trapezoid. It's this little kind of tall triangle shape at the bottom of Colombia, where Colombia has this little sliver of Amazon all the way down to the Amazon River. It was lost in gained in a territorial dispute with Peru, and borders being redrawn maybe 100 or so years ago. And that's interesting geographically because it's Colombia. No other part of Colombia reaches so far south into the Amazon, so you get a whole bunch of different birds that don't really occur anywhere else in Colombia. So the birding down there is actually surprisingly relatively new. I think it's partly because, like I said, the Colombian birding culture is growing rapidly now. So before, the international birders who represented the majority of leisure birders in Colombia had seen all of those birds. If they'd birded anywhere in the Amazon of Peru, of Brazil, they had those birds. So they weren't targets on listing trips to Colombia. That was all in these areas, the endemic stuff. So Leticia's birding scene is relatively new. There's this one local guide there, Otto Linares, who's finding new birds for Colombia, on a sort of monthly or bi-monthly basis, new antbirds, new nunlets, stuff like that. That's the probably the last place in Colombia where I can reasonably expect, if it goes well, 30 or 40 new species that I've never seen before.
That's a big whack of birds.
Yeah, and it's just fun. I mean, I grew up loving nature, so I always say this, anywhere I can go, especially the Choco lowlands and the Amazon, it's like an adventure playground. It's like the forest you grew up daydreaming about, just exuberant life everywhere, and river dolphins and frogs and sloths, toucans. It's a trip.
Man. Last question I had for you, and I know both you and Molly mentioned that Jennifer Ackerman, who we got to interview just yesterday, is a favorite author of both of you guys. Mm-hmm. Now, I know you do a lot of reading because we talk about stuff, and you keep mentioning books you're reading. And I mentioned I was reading Magdalena right now, which I think you're reading. You're right now as well, right? You picked it up recently.
I picked it up again. I reread it a few months ago. Probably I travelled down to Onda on the Magdalena River. It's a few hours west of Bogota. Good dry forest birding down there as well. I went there birding, of course, but Onda has a really well preserved historical centre, and it was it's the place where Garcia Marquez, when he used to take the steamboats up the river from Barranquilla to Bogota when he was studying in Bogota in I guess the 20s or 30s or something like that. He would always stop in Onda, and then you'd have to take a mule train up the mountain or an old train, So I reread it then because I was going down to the Magdalena, and I sort of thought it'd be nice to read this again with some of that context, that historical context. There's a nice museum of the Magdalena River down there. So yeah, I read that again recently.
Nice. Who would you say are like authors that in particular have been like particularly inspirational for you?
I mean, if we're talking bird related or just broadly, I mean,
I'd say both. Give me one of each, maybe.
I mean, for Columbia stuff, I always like Wade Davis, who wrote Magdalena. His book One River is kind of one of the Bibles on Columbia exploration and travel and stuff like that. I mean, Garcia Marquez is kind of an obvious answer, but when I first came here, I did find that I think Garcia Marquez is an amazing writer, but I think there's an added layer to it when you've lived in Colombia for a while and you start to see the kind of, because he always said that his novels weren't magical realism. He always just said that I wrote down what happened to me and how I lived it, and everyone else thought it was magical realism. It was something to that effect anyway. And so you do start to realise that you spend time in the Colombian Caribbean, you do realise that, okay, actually there is some truth to that statement. Bird-wise, this is where I'm going to be embarrassing because I'm really bad with author names sometimes, but I really love the kind of books that combine, I'm reading, Birds and Us by Tim Burkhead.
Tim Burkhead, I know.
I think it's Birds and Us. It's called. I'm bad with titles sometimes, but I love those kind of books that combine. I find human relations with birds really, really interesting. And he's kind of like tracing it from early cave paintings all the way up to modern times. I really enjoyed books like that. And I don't know. I mean, books about birding are always fun. What's it called? The Glitter in the Green by John Donne about hummingbirds, which name checks my co-host. Yeah. Diego Calderon from the Birder Show is named in that book, which was kind of fun.
Nice.
That's a fun book. I really enjoyed that book. It's the Cara Cara book by...
Most Remarkable Creature.
Most Remarkable Creature. Yeah. And I came to that actually because I really like his band, Shearwater.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that was the same guy.
Yeah. He was, Shearwater's like, on Sub Pop and had really, really good songs. He was in another band that his name escapes me, but that book I loved that book. I really found that book fascinating. I love it that there's enough demand now, it feels like, that there are so many books published on just one species or one small family of bird where somebody really does a deep dive, on like swifts or ravens or Jennifer's book on owls. We talked about it. That's coming out soon. I really love that, and John on hummingbirds, John Dunn. Those books are really fun. I love really getting a deep dive on one particular species.
Nice. Well, I think you guys should maybe add that into your show a little bit. Is the books you're reading, or maybe because I know Diego reads a ton as well.
Yeah, I did. I actually did on Instagram for a while. I need to pick it up again. I did like a Friday Birder Show book club video where I did a short my take. Oh, this book is about this, and it was really enjoyable and really interesting. And then I think I just got in a period when I was traveling a lot and I wasn't reading quite as much, and I kind of fell off with it. But I need to start that back up again because that was fun. It was nice to be able to recommend.
I feel like there's more and more good titles coming out all the time lately. Like for a while, I felt like that wasn't as the case. I felt like the things were kind of drying up a little bit. Maybe I just didn't know what was going on. That's entirely possible. But it just seems like there's been a flood of really good titles coming out recently.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day in the interview we did as well, is that one of the nice things about being a birder is now that's exclusively what I get from family for Christmas and my birthday, which are close together. And my parents were out on my birthday this year, so they came with... It was probably about a half a dozen titles from grandparents and aunts and uncles, and every book was about birds.
Nice.
Which was nice. Yeah, that was kind of fun. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate you. You've been a great host to us while we've been here in Colombia. You've really made our our trip great, along with Luisa and Roger and Fabio and all our friends here in Colombia. It's been a great time, and it's coming to a close here pretty shortly.
It's kind of sad. I mean, we've only been together for what, three and a half days, if that. And I enjoy. I like it when people come down to Colombia. I feel like I get to play host, which I enjoy. When people come and visit.
Well, we have plans for future trips. So
absolutely.
More Birdiest Show meets Life List.
Exactly. Yeah, man.
Do a tour. We should do a tour together.
Oh, there we go. Now we're cooking with grease.
We bidded Helmet Crest.
Oh, wow.
Birdiest Show meets
Wow. Big talk.
Big tour. Big hike.
Yeah.
Big walk.
I got I hope my left knee could handle that even, but I love
that.
that.
Just like 10 days, we'll just go up in the middle of the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm glad this is on recording. And we're committed.
Diego and I have made so many. I think because you were on our first Birdiest Show and we talked a bit about that. We talked about it with Jennifer. We talked about it with Rick Prum. I think we've had a bunch of people. And we've said to all of them, you have to come to Colombia and we'll go and see the Helmet Crest. At this point, we could probably do a previous guests of the Birdiest Show tour to see the Helmet Crest.
You see, now I like that idea.
Yeah.
I think that's a swell idea.
Imagine that, like Jennifer and Rick and yourself, and
that'd be an illustrious
and all these people.
Yeah, that'd be a hell of a good time.
That would be fun. Yeah,
nice. Well, thanks again, man. Thanks everybody for listening, and be sure to catch the latest episodes of the Birders Show. And thanks to Koa Sporting Optics, who sponsor both us and the Birders Show.
You do.
And take care, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.